Welcome everybody to Eye in the Sky. I am currently in Detroit and I want to do something a little different. Mainly just give you all the little bits and points of information to get you as prepared for tomorrow's game against the Detroit Lions as possible. Every single week you do a flip card like this with all this information. All of it's good, all of it's relevant. However, not all of it makes it to the broadcast. There's just too much. So I want to run through this matchup. I want to get you guys as prepared as possible. Not all of this is pretty, by the way, but get you guys as ready as possible because the national guys won't really cover this game as much. That way you can sit back, do what you do on Sunday, and enjoy. So why don't we start with the Detroit Lions, a team that we've had some problems with. Now, Detroit has won the last 5 matchups with the Vikings. The last time that's happened, and that 5-game win streak is tied for longest in the history of the two franchises. The last time that happened was 1961 to 1963. That's back when my dad was playing in the NFL. So a long, long time ago. 5 in a row, not very good. Let's start with what I think is the engine of their offense, and that's Jared Goff. Right now, Jared Goff has a 74.9% completion percentage. That's second best in the NFL. Okay, 1,631 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and has been sacked 13 times versus the Vikings, who have given up 28. Overall, his rating is 116.5, which is second best in the NFL. This offense so far this year has been prolific. They've been averaging over 36.7 points per game at home. That's second best in the NFL, and averaging 35.7 points per game at home since 2024. So this is a very, very tough place to turn this whole thing around. But Jared Goff's last 5 games versus the Minnesota Vikings, get ready for this. He's 5-0. 31.2 points per game, completion percentage of 76.3, 283 yards a game, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 113.5. Okay, so Jared Goff has been good against the Vikings. The one area where there's some light maybe at the end of the tunnel is on passing plays that go passing air yards between 10 and 19, okay? Intermediate, they call it. Jared Goff right now, his passer rating on intermediate throws is 148.6, which is second best in the NFL. However, the Vikings defense is only allowing a passer rating of 65.4 on those same throws, so something there has to give. Now, as good as Jared Goff has been doing, the guy that I think is most important to stop is Jir Gibbs. Now, just take these numbers in, right, and what this guy has been able to accomplish. 720 scrimmage yards overall is number 1 for Detroit. Last week versus Tampa, the guy had 218 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, that's against Tampa Bay. That's not even what he's been doing against us. But just listen to this. Gibbs versus the Minnesota Vikings since 2024. 160 plus scrimmage yards and multiple touchdowns. He had 5 rushing touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings last year. We only gave up 12 all season, and this guy is responsible for 5. 3 of those touchdowns were out of a 22 personnel look, just basic I formation runs. So it's red zone toward the end of the game. That's really when he's been killing us. He's had 100 plus scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 career games versus Minnesota. Overall in the last 4 games, 9 touchdowns. So this guy has been tough. And then don't forget about David Montgomery, the Jir Gibbs, David Montgomery duo. It's the only duo in the NFL with over 300 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns each. Okay, Gibbs has got 6 rushing touchdowns. Montgomery has 4. That's 10 rushing, and then add 1 passing to Gibbs, and that's 11 total touchdowns by this running back duo. Probably the best that we're going to see all year. Also, can't forget Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a little bit different when it comes to wide receivers. meaning he's not very big, but he's stout, and he's a run after the catch guy, and this offense depends so much on timing. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, so far this year, 7 touchdowns, leads the NFL with 7 receiving touchdowns already. 6 of those 7 have been at home, and he's averaging overall 90.3 yards per game at home. Against the Vikings, he's averaged 109.8 yards per game receiving. So you got to figure out a way to stop this 3-headed monster right here between Jared Goff, Jir Gibbs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know, how are we going to do that when we're kind of trending in the wrong direction? The Vikings allowed 8 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks on defense. They only allowed 10 in their entire first 5 games. Okay, and you look at some of these numbers, weeks 1 through 5, and then weeks 7 and 8, points per game. Weeks 1 through 5, 19.4. The last 2 weeks, 32.5. Okay, third down percentage, we were 30.2%, one of the tops in the NFL. The last 2 weeks, we've been 52.2, allowing third down conversions. So a couple of areas in yards per game, don't forget about that. 289.8 in the first 5 games. That's the average. The last 2 weeks, 390. So getting Van Ginkel back might help. However, both he and Josh Metellus are questionable, along with Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. Being questionable, that means 2 of those 4 aren't going to play. Which 2 don't? I really don't know, but we need all the help we can on defense, no question about that. Overall, on defense, however, things have changed quite a bit. Last year, on defense, it's remarkable that we faced passes, I believe about 62% of the time, which is the most that any team defense that is faced last year. That number has completely changed because now teams are running the ball against us 53% of the time, and it's just turned itself on the head. So we've gone from a team that's had the lead, rushing the quarterback, having to do those kinds of things, to now all of a sudden we got to find a way to stop the run, and it's been quite an adjustment. One of the things that will also help this defense is starting fast. 5 of the last 7 games, the opponents have scored first. In 4 of the last 7 games, the opponents have scored on their opening drive. So that's something that's got to change. And then in the last 2 weeks, it's also been a problem because we've given up, on the last 2 games in the opening drive, 26 plays, 158 yards, 14 points. So that's tough. That's something that's also that needs to change and get better. Now, offensively, we got some good news. Some of it's good news. Number one, Kerby Joseph is not going to play. Kerby Joseph is perhaps the best defender on this Detroit Lions defense. 20 interceptions since he was drafted in 2022. That's number 1 in the NFL. Leads the rest of his draft class by 5. He was hurt his knee in week 7, or been out since week 7. So he's not going to play tomorrow. Brian Branch will be back after his 1-game suspension. And so that means probably Thomas Harper will be the other safety. They're going to play a lot of man-to-man. One of those guys playing man-to-man is going to be Terrion Arnold. He'll probably be back after missing 2 games with the shoulder, which really could be a good thing because according to PFF, he's the lowest graded corner of that entire group. So Aiden Hutchinson just getting a $180 million contract. He should be ready to go. He might be, enjoying a little bit too much, which is what we hope. A couple of other good things other than, J.J. McCarthy getting back in the saddle. He's missed 22 of 24 possible games. This is going to be a game where they're going to try to force the tight throws. He may be able to get some things going with his legs, which will make all of us nervous just because of all that. This is also going to be the first game that Jordan Addison gets to play with J.J. McCarthy. Justin Jefferson has gone 6 games without a touchdown reception, tied for the longest in his career, longest drought in that regard in his career. However, one touchdown pass came week 1 from J.J. McCarthy. So hopefully that relationship with McCarthy and Addison and Justin Jefferson will turn into something big against Detroit. Now, a couple other, and you had to dig deep for some of these. The Lions are 2-1-1 coming off the bye in the Dan Campbell era, and keep in mind though, all 4 of those games were played on the road coming off the bye. And also, this is how deep you had to dig, Dan Campbell is 0-2 versus quarterbacks in their first 3 career starts. So J.J. McCarthy getting his 3rd career start. The other 2, Justin Fields in Chicago, and the other one was Bailey Zappi with the New England Patriots. Again, both of those games on the road. So this is going to be the first time that this game coming out of the bye for Coach will be played at home. So overall, those are the numbers, right? That's just how they are. It's no surprise that the Vikings are underdogs by, I believe like 8.5 points or somewhere around there. But if we can keep from turning the football over, limit those pre-snap penalties. We don't know with Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill who is going to play. Darrisaw is going to, both tackles are going to be extremely important because Aiden Hutchinson can flop and play both sides. Don't forget about Derek Barnes, who plays the other outside linebacker position. He's pretty good too. But I expect the Lions to be aggressive. They're going to play man-to-man. And we're going to have to be ready for it, have the right routes ready at the right time. And we're going to have J.J. McCarthy grow up really fast. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Wanted to bring you all this information before the game and make you fans as ready as possible for kickoff at noon. And don't forget, set your clocks back 1 hour. It'll be 1 o'clock local time here. But it's amazing how this place has turned from a stadium and a team and a game that you want to play to over the last 3 years, and just this has not been a kind place in Minnesota Vikings. So now is the perfect time to turn it around. God bless, and Skol Vikings. All right, here we go. 3, 2, and 1.